All right, welcome to another Senderos webinar. This time I will be presenting Mountain Lodges of Peru, Salkantay and Lares treks in Peru. And then in a very different part of South America, or from South America, I'll be presenting the ships that Polar Latitudes run to Antarctica. I thought I'd combine the two because it's two products that I haven't talked about in a while, and just basically going to go over the products that we represent quite briefly, and then there'll be time for some questions at the end, and then if you have any further questions or want to delve further into the details of these products, then we can always arrange another call afterwards, but I will be sending a follow-up to this webinar with all of the presentations and the fact sheets and the rates, and links for images as well. So I'll start with Mountain Lodges of Peru and their Salkantay and Lares treks. Bear with me just one moment. Okay, so the Salkantay lodge to lodge trek is basically taken from Cusco and ends in Cusco. It's 7 days and 6 nights. And they stay at several different lodges along the way. So it's small groups, maximum size is 12. I'd say the average is probably around kind of 6 to 10 really. So you kind of really have a full group for this. It includes a guided tour of Machu Picchu. Actually, for last year and this year, they have started including 2 guided tours of Machu Picchu. So I'll go over that in just a moment. They have weekly departures from March to December. They do send us availability on all of these departures every week. They send us an Excel sheet of the availabilities. You might also get that through your DMCs, but if you ever have a last minute inquiry for any of the departures throughout the year, then do just send me an email because I should have very up-to-date availability. And it's also available once a month on horseback. So the Salkantay trek is basically one of the more challenging treks in the area around Cusco. It's not in the Sacred Valley, it's further over to the kind of west side, and explores an area of the Andes that not many people get to see. So basically it follows this route. For the first day, you're driving through the valley away from Cusco, visiting a little known archaeological site called Quilla Romiak, and then up to El Pedregal for lunch, which is a really beautiful farm-to-table restaurant set on the hillside. And you're also visiting a weavers cooperative and women's cooperative in this village called Yanapana, which MLP work very closely with. You're then driving on a bit further until you get to a point where guests can then start to trek towards the Salkantay Lodge and the Sorai Pampa base, which is where you're at for the first 2 nights. So this is the kind of landscape you've got around you. You know, it's a dirt track, it's a road, and you're walking towards the Salkantay Peak in the distance. So the first lodge is the Salkantay Lodge. It is the larger of all of the MLP lodges, well, actually on this trek, and with 12 bedrooms. And it's set in this really beautiful valley called Sorai Pampa. It was one of the first lodges built here, and it was built in collaboration with the local people who live in the communities here as well. This is Salkantay mountain you can see here in the distance, and so you've got this incredible view out from the lodge towards the mountain, which you also get from the bedrooms. Bedrooms are really comfortable, very warm, and a hot water bottle every night. Got a nice little balcony to look out towards the mountains. And one step up in a bit of luxury, each of the lodges has its own hot tub jacuzzi set outside as well. And not only that, they have a lovely fire area, as well as a beautiful sauna as well, which is made out of eucalyptus trees. The feel inside the lodge itself is very communal, it's very warm, it's very welcoming, with incredible Peruvian cuisine. You get 3-course meals with every meal, and a range of different snacks to take with you on your hikes. So the first day from Salkantay is taken pretty slowly. So you will have had a few nights in Cusco, hopefully to acclimatize to the height. So when you're up here at Sorai Pampa, the first half day is spent going up to Umantay Lake, which is this lake you can see on the map just north of Sorai Pampa. And this is going straight uphill towards Umantay, and Umantay Lake is a glacial lake in the mountains, which is a very sacred lake for the local communities. And to add that extra element of kind of going into the Andes, going well into the Andes and feeling kind of how sacred it is for the local people, MLP work with a local shaman, and they take you through this whole ceremony of what they would traditionally do when they're embarking on a trek or a trail into the Andes. And it's a really special way to start the next week. That afternoon is spent free, just to kind of explore in the area. There is an option to do horse riding. And then in the evening, this same shaman comes back to the lodge and they burn this package of kind of offerings to the mountains for people in this kind of, the starting of the trek for the next week. So the next day is spent walking from Soraypampa to Huayra Lodge, and this is probably the most strenuous day of walking. You're walking for about 6 to 8 hours, and you're going up over the Salkantay Pass, but it is absolutely spectacular. So the first few hours, kind of, I'd say about 3 hours, is spent solidly going uphill, but at a very gentle pace. One thing to mention about MLP is that they do have mules and other ways of carrying your luggage from lodge to lodge. And so when you're in Cusco and you get your briefing, they take most of your main luggage into these large duffel bags and put them on the mules and horses and take them on. So basically all you've got to do is carry your day pack with you and make sure that you got everything you need in there, which will include like your obviously your water and your raincoat and hat and sun cream and snacks and everything like that. So then you're coming up over the Salkantay Pass, so Salkantay Mountain in the distance, and hopefully some condor spotting as well. This pass is around 4,900 meters, I believe, and the Salkantay Mountain itself is at 6,200. So you're quite high up here, and this is the highest point you'll get on this trek. And then as you're coming back down, you're visiting this whole kind of new area, this whole new valley, and you've got lunch on the way down, and then you're coming down into this valley to the Huayra Lodge, and this is a very remote lodge. This lodge is at 3,900 meters, so it's still quite high, and there are no roads that lead here, only footpaths. And again, it's run and owned, and it was built by the local community, and it was just such a beautiful, warming place to come and visit. And you sit there and relax, and you get given all your snacks and your drinks, and obviously you spend some time in the hot tub before kind of going to bed ready for the next day. So the next day you're walking to Polar Lodge, which is kind of further down into the valley and further towards Machu Picchu. This day is quite sedate. You've got 3 to 4 hours hiking, and you're traversing along the mountainside. Again, extremely remote, no kind of road access to this area at all. And when you get to Polar Lodge, you've got a big pachamanca waiting for you, a big pit bake with lots of food, so a lot of kind of chicken and guinea pig and corn and potatoes, all baked in this pit bake, ready for you to enjoy in the evening or that afternoon. And then in the evening you have activities like a pisco sour making class or a handicrafts class and things like that. So again, the rooms are very comfortable, very spacious, all with hot water bottles and all with views out to the valley as well. The next day is taken again at a gentle pace towards Huayra Lodge. And so when you're hiking on this day, again, you're just traversing across the mountainside here. And then you are looking at basically how the landscape is changing, how the biodiversity is changing. You've got a lot of ferns and orchids in this area, and you're coming into much more tropical climates. This day also includes a coffee farm visit, so a visit to a local coffee farm near Huayra Lodge, and they take you through the whole process of the coffee making. And then you get to Lucuma Lodge in this kind of tropical area with lots of really amazing kind of trees and plants around you, and really beautiful views again across this amazing valley. And so this last day, you're arriving in Aguascalientes eventually, and you're taking this route that goes up and over Yactapata Pass, which is only at 2,700 meters, but you are hiking up into the hills. And as you can see, this is all very kind of quite humid, tropical, and area with streams and lots of bromeliads and orchids and things in there on the way. Yactapata Pass is at the top of this hill, and this is when you get your first view of Machu Picchu. So you have your first view here with Huayna Picchu on the left and Machu Picchu Mountain on the right. So not the typical profile view you see from the other side. So it's a really magical place to stop and witness where you're going to be going next. You get to the hydroelectric station down on the other side of the hill, and then you take your train to Aguas Calientes. And then have an afternoon tour of Machu Picchu. At Aguas Calientes, guests stay at the Inca Terra Machu Picchu Pueblo, and then the next morning they actually have another guided tour of Machu Picchu. And they decided to include this because it meant that with the new restrictions that you can get the most out of the site. Okay, going on to Sacred Valley and Lares. So again, it's a Cusco to Cusco itinerary, all inclusive. And it includes areas of the Sacred Valley using the lodges as the bases around this area. So basically you have a daily menu of cultural activities and hiking, and you're stopping off at the lodges as to have these base camps. It's very centered around the community, this program, but it also includes the big hitters, so the big archaeological sites of Pisac, Ollantaytambo and Machu Picchu as well. Again, weekly departures, and you can also add the mini Inca Trail or the Express Inca Trail onto the end of this itinerary, so you can actually arrive to Machu Picchu by foot. It includes a visit to Pisac Market and Pisac Town, but if you decide you want to do something a bit more strenuous, you can hike on this morning instead. And so the two different groups, should they have separated, will all meet in this community called Fiacha, where they get taken through this, again, this lovely coca ceremony. They get taught about all the corn and the potatoes in the area. They get shown how to sow potatoes. And again, you have this wonderful Pachamanca feast with everybody. That afternoon, you're heading into Pisac, and Pisac is obviously one of the big Sacred Valley sites, but you're arriving here late in the afternoon, which means that you've got pretty much the place yourself and this beautiful light that's shining onto the site. It's a really beautiful time of day to be there. And then you're going down to your first lodge. So your first lodge on this itinerary is Lamai, and it's set in the Sacred Valley. It's quite a smart hotel, and it's got, I think, about 15 rooms that are all really spacious, really beautiful gardens with llamas in them. And as you saw there, a hot tub, nice big spacious dining area. Every night before you go anywhere on these trips, your guide is briefing the whole group on what you need to be doing the next day, what you need to be taking with you, and what options you'd like to do as well. Going further into the Lares Valley on this day, you're going past a very important archaeological site called Ancas Marca, which is actually on one of the old Inca trails, until you get to Choque Cancha, which is a weavers cooperative MLP have been working with for a number of years. And they welcome you into their very small community, very ancient weaving community. And they're shown, they show you all their different weaving techniques and dyeing techniques. It's really fascinating. And then they give you a very traditional lunch, which they make themselves as well. And so there's also the choice on that afternoon to hike to Wakawasi, depending on the level of fitness and how much you want to kind of exert yourselves in this area. One amazing thing about this area is that you do come across a lot of really incredible kind of local people, all with very different styles of traditional dress. And the guides will very much encourage the guests to take bags of bread rolls with them and fruit, and be able to give to the local communities as well, as this is kind of an expected kind of offering to the people who live in this area. So Wakawasi Lodge is the second lodge on this itinerary, and it's at 3,800 meters. Again, run and built by the local community. And it's got these incredible views out across the valley. Each of the rooms has its own like small hot tub outside on the balcony. So again, it's got these really amazing views out towards those. And yeah, very convivial atmosphere, really, really comfortable place to stay. This is an example of the snack bag that you could take with you on your trek. And yes, as I mentioned, it's run by the locals, and they all wear their traditional dress by choice. Some of the men decide not to, depending if they're in maintenance or something like that. But it all feels very, for for want of a better word, authentic, really. And then the final day, you're making your way down to Ollantaytambo, and this can either be done by a series of different treks, or it can be done by visiting different villages on the way down by road. So as you can imagine, the Lares trek is a bit more of a sedate, bit more slower kind of option if people are not so interested in doing kind of the big remote hikes like the Salkantay. But they're both different in their own right and in different ways. In the Sacred Valley, I guess we'll be staying at Wilkatika in Urubamba, which isn't actually an MLP lodge, but it's one that they work with. And then you're getting to Ollantaytambo, and you are, you have a whole kind of tour of the site before taking the train onto Machu Picchu. And on that train, you can, as I said, stop off at kilometer 104 for the full day Inca Trail to be able to finish your day at Machu Picchu, should you wish to do that. And it's the same setup as Salkantay. You've got an afternoon tour, and then you've got a morning tour of Machu Picchu. But the Lares trek can also be extended to be a 7-day program and include Chinchero Marasa Morai, which I'm sure you're all familiar with in the Sacred Valley, but also include a larger hike around the Lares Valley. And you can also choose to hike all the way down to Ollantaytambo on a 10-day hike. And they also do these other programs, which include kind of what they call the Black Diamond, where you can walk from Cusco out to the Lares Valley and onwards. So yeah, they're really experimenting with their different itineraries, which is really exciting. But basically, mountain lodges were set up as by some local Peruvians who were really passionate about this area, really wanted to connect with the locals and the traditions, and show guests places they wouldn't otherwise see, and offer a very deep kind of cultural understanding of the region and the people and traditions, but really make sure people really take their time on these itineraries and take their time on these hikes. You know, they're at very lovely paces. And the Salkantay, you've got all that afternoon when you arrive at the different lodges just to sit down and relax and we'll eat and drink and soak up the atmosphere. You know, they're not hikes that are done in just 3 days. It's very much about immersion and learning and understanding from the area, which really makes it stand out. MLP do have a few hotels in Cusco. The one that they've got operating at the moment is called Andenes, which is quite new. And so I will be sending out information about that when we start to get a bit more of it. And so now down to Antarctica. So Antarctica, is obviously a very different destination to Peru. They just started their season for 22-23 at the beginning of November, and we've been getting reports from them almost on a weekly basis, which is quite exciting. They're telling us that the waves are high and the wind is changeable, but everybody seems to be really enjoying themselves, which is the main thing. So Polar Latitudes run 2 different ships, the MS Seaventure and the MS Island Sky. The MS Seaventure they only took on last season, and unfortunately because of COVID, it only managed, I think, 2 voyages. But the MS Island Sky they have been operating with for a number of years, along with the Hebridean Sky, which some of you may or may not know about. They are sister ships, but they don't operate the Hebridean Sky anymore. So the MS Seaventure is a boat or a ship that has been around for many years. It was built in the 1990s, and it's an extremely strong, stable and fast boat. Simon and I were actually on the boat in Lisbon about a month and a half ago, so we got to know it very well. It is a 1A Super Ice Class, which is the highest possible ice class for a passenger ship. It's got a faster speed, so therefore using less fuel. So it is quite, efficient in that sense. It's got its own citizen science laboratory, which they use for every departure. And also it's got 2 side platforms for zodiac loading, which means they can position themselves in or out of the wind as kind of easier in different situations depending on the weather. They've got 14 zodiacs altogether, and this ship carries up to 100, I think it's 149 passengers. They do limit it at 139, but occasionally they might bring on 149. The ship is actually built for 164 passengers, that's not including crew, but they decided to limit it at 149, so there's enough space for everyone. The design inside is very clean and modern, and you have almost all the cabins are the same. They're very similar. You've got cabins over 5 different categories. So you've got potholes, staterooms, window staterooms, and then on decks 6 and 7, you've got the veranda staterooms and the owner's suite, and these are the ones with the balconies. The owner's suites, there's only 2 of them, but their verandas, they do take up a whole deck. It does have an open bar and mini bar, lots of tea and coffee and cocoa for anyone who would want it, plus obviously water and soft drinks. Really wonderful cuisine that is served in their dining room, which has these beautiful windows and panoramic windows which look out the whole time. And this ship actually does have its own fitness centre and sauna on board as well. The Island Sky has complete outdoor access and a promenade on deck 4, so bringing you closer to the region and Antarctica. They also have this observation platform on deck 6, as does the Seaventure as well, actually. And the Seaventure also has 2 different lecture rooms, 2 different kind of exhibition rooms, one right at the top at the bow, and one further in where the bar is as well. So they've got areas where they can do their lectures and talks on board. And the Island Sky also have this quite a bit larger outdoor dining area, but the Seaventure also does cater for outdoor dining as well. So on the Island Sky, the cabins are slightly larger. They're very well appointed. So they are actually over 8 different categories. So you've got pothole, triple suites. Now the triple suites on the Island Sky and the Seaventure, there's only 2 of them each. But yes, on the Island Sky, you've got window suites, promenade suites, deluxe suites, veranda suites, penthouse and owner's suites. So you've got a huge range of different cabins to choose from. All of which on the deck 4 have tinted sliding glass doors, and then you've got private balconies on decks 5 and 6. And this was the main difference between this ship and the Hebridean Sky, which didn't have any private balconies. So the activities that Polar Latitudes can offer, apart from the normal landings, is kayaking, camping, citizen science, and photography. Now the camping and kayaking do tend to sell out quite quickly. If you were to look back, or not look back, but look at their dates and rates page on their website, you'll find that there is a number of spaces available for each of the kayaking and camping options. And so it's very easy to see how quickly they book up for a start, and secondly, how many spaces are left. So the camping is done in bivy sacks in these little holes. There's actually a few tents that they use, but they generally feel you get a better experience if you're out in a bivy sack, which is quite exciting. The kayaking limits on the Seaventure is 30 people, on the Island Sky at 16, and then camping limits on the Seaventure is 40, and on the Island Sky is 30. For the citizen science, anybody can do this. You just need to sign up on board, and this is basically collecting data with the guides, and that can be anything from the amount of algae in the sea to kind of counting the amount of kind of nests you find in the penguin colony, and then collecting that data and going through it with the guides. And then they can tell the guests also how far like the projects have got with the citizen science as well. And of course there is a photographer on board to help the guests with their photography, and that could be anything from the iPhones and smartphones to the biggest SLR photography. So each of their voyage inclusions are 2 hotel nights in Ushuaia, that's at the Aracua, ground transfers in Ushuaia, all food and drink on board. You get a lovely expedition parka from Polar Latitudes, inclusion in the citizen science program, photography coach, as we mentioned. Every voyage has a passenger service manager. So this is somebody who can help guests with anything they might need. So they are often found in the ship's shop and can help passengers with anything they need with their cabins, anything they're not happy with, or anything that they want to do extra. Any questions really, they can use the passenger service master. And there is Wi-Fi available on both the ships. It's available up to a certain point, certain level of internet. I think you get a certain amount of data, and after that you need to pay. I think the Island Sky has its own computers on board, whereas the Seaventure you are logging on through your own devices. So the main itineraries that Polar Latitudes run there are 3 different itineraries really. They run the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the kind of the standard route really that comes in and out of Ushuaia for either 12 or 13 days. The reason why it might be 13 days is because that's when they include the camping option. So they have more 13 days than 12 days on the Antarctic Peninsula. They also run Falklands, South Georgia and Antarctica trips. They run these probably about 3 or 4 times each season that actually depart more often from Ushuaia than they do from Puerto Madryn, but this is just to show you what the Puerto Madryn route looks like, because that's the one that they run at the beginning and the end of every season. And this is a really fantastic 21-day trip, which visits these kind of outlying islands, the Falklands and South Georgia, and this is where you're more likely to see the king penguin. Whereas on the Antarctic Peninsula, you're only seeing the smaller penguins, kind of the Gentoo and the chinstrap. But yeah, really fantastic exploration of these islands and the seas around here. And then they do have one crossing of the Antarctic Circle each season. And this is 15 days. So this is taking in a lot of the peninsula and then crossing the Antarctic Circle, going further south. So this is for those people who really want the full kind of Antarctic experience, if you like. And so when you're in Ushuaia, this is, you're obviously spending a couple of days here, you get a full briefing, make sure that you're completely prepared for Antarctica. It's useful to have these 2 nights to account for any delays, obviously. Then you set sail for 2.5 days, 3 days across the Drake Passage, depending on the weather. Now, obviously, as you will know, you either get the Drake Lake or the Drake Shake, or you get a nice mixture of the 2. But it's always something to warn your clients about, that they may need to take some seasickness tablets with them, or the doctor on board can supply those, or to just bear in mind that they might have a bit of a rocky time out to Antarctica, as it is one of the rockiest parts of the ocean. But once you start getting down to the peninsula, obviously you're starting to see your first big icebergs and glaciers, and it starts to get absolutely fascinating. I think it's one of those things that you don't really prepare yourself for, and then suddenly you see this big tabletop glacier going past, and you think, yes, I'm finally here. And then obviously the trips include the stops at the different historical bases and the outposts, which again adds this very interesting element to the whole trip, in that it adds that kind of human element and history of exploration. And of course, people are here to visit the wildlife encounters. I've got a video here, I hope it works for you all right, but it just shows basically what Polar Latitudes has to offer. Okay, so there we have a short video to show what Polar Latitudes has to offer and the different penguin colonies that people see, and how close you are getting to nature out in this complete and amazing wilderness. So when to visit? So the season runs from early November to early March. The early season, you've got a lot more snow and ice. And you've got that kind of deep Antarctica feel, really. You've got a lot of fresh virgin snow, and it's the mating season for penguins. So you've got a lot of courtship displays, you've got nest building, penguins with pebbles, that kind of thing. And it is one of the best times for landscape photography as well, because it has this very kind of pristine feel and soft light. Then you're getting into high season, so mid-December to January, and you've got warmer temperatures. You've got, up to 20 hours of daylight with more time to explore. You've got all the penguin chicks hatching from mid-December, and this is when the penguins chicks hatching and the humpback whales start to arrive. And you've got a lot more seal activity as well. So you can understand why the high season is kind of the most popular time to go, with all that daylight and all of that activity going on around. But the late season, this is when it's peak whale sightings. You've got humpback orca and minke whale sightings. You get a lot of penguin chicks that are starting to kind of fledge and leave their nests. You get a lot of molting penguins. This is when the ship travels further south and goes to the polar circle. So that's when the ice melt is at its climax, and the ships can go that distance and explore the unique bays and channels that are otherwise unreachable. And then you get these really incredible sunsets as the sun is sitting lower in the sky, and sunrises as well. And so it has these really, really beautiful light conditions. There are fewer ships in the seas around this time as well, which means that, you're feeling even more kind of isolated. And then why go with Polar Latitudes? Well, I mean, Polar Latitudes is one of those companies that has a really kind of strong passion and a very interesting backstory to their company. They do only run trips to Antarctica. They don't go to the Arctic. So that's all they do. So they're very specialized in that sense. They are founder owned and operated. So they've got their board of directors and also everyone who manages the company. They have decades of collective experience. They've all worked for different companies over the years, and they have seen this industry grow over the years, and they're very, very dedicated to making sure it's done in the right way. They are members of AETO, so they make sure that they really do kind of adhere to why people are coming to this area, and to be able to offer the best experience for guests. They really do focus on the destination in terms of an expedition feel. They really position themselves in the market as being a cruise, being an expedition, not a cruise. That goes to Antarctica and the destination is why people are there. It's not necessarily the ship, although they do have this wonderful kind of comfort and luxury on board the two boats. They have excellent amenities, but that they don't want that to distract from what is very important, which is the destination. With all of this means that they are authentically passionate. This a picture of Seb Coulthard, who is one of their guides who works with Polar Latitudes, and he's an Antarctic historian. He's actually going on the Shackleton trip in December. And each of their guides are similar to this. They've won awards for their guiding. They have all their specializations, whether they're marine biologists or Antarctic historians or kind of a penguin expert. But they all have these specializations, and they're all incredibly experienced and personable people, which leads on to the guest team interactions. Excuse me, time again, guests come back from the Polar Latitudes experience having said that they feel that passion from the guides has really rubbed off, and it will always be something that sticks into a lot of people's minds, that the guides stood out as being particularly passionate and kind of connect well with all the guests, which really adds a large amount of quality to the interactions. As I mentioned before, the citizen science and education is a huge benefit for guests on board the Polar Latitude boats. They have very robust and long-running programs, and they really provide this opportunity for passengers to actively get involved. And yes, with the boats, they've got this idea that actually the expedition, it does take the focus, but what they really like to do is offer something slightly different, which is like a surprise and delight moment. So they look for those opportunities when the weather is good to be able to serve barbecues and lunch outside, or just surprise people with hot chocolate when they might be a bit cold, or to go out on silent Zodiac cruises, which they take people out on the Zodiacs and just kind of tell everyone to be quiet for a moment and really take in their surroundings. So they really put in that extra effort to find out what, to enhance the experience of each of the guests. And then finally, Polar Latitudes is one of the few operators that require all operational staff to be certified as crew under the International Maritime Organization standards. They also have developed a Polar Tourism Guides Association qualification framework. And so they've asked all of their guys to kind of partake in this and to kind of certify polar guides and the skills and experience required in their industry. So that means that they can give us gives Polar Latitudes the confidence that all the guests will be kept safe and benefit from the best team, really. And so when it comes to booking, you can either book through them directly, through either Connie or Lana, actually, sorry, her name is, or you can do it online and you can check all availability online as well. There is an agents portal, so you can check the availability and which cabins are available, and also has all the information about what the cabins have to offer as well. And then you can go on and even book that and choose the different options for camping and kayaking. And then the agents portal has all of the resources as well. So it has a branded brochure, all the itineraries in a lot of detail, sales documents, images and video resources, deck plans and maps. So that's Polar Latitudes in a nutshell as well. So yes, I would like to finish there. I hope you enjoyed the presentation of two of our different partners, one in Peru, one in Antarctica. And yeah, does anybody have any questions before I sign out and send you the follow-up? You can either pop it into the chat for me, or you can unmute yourselves and let me know. There's only a few of us here today, but don't feel free to ask me anything you like.
Hey Nicola, Ollie here.
Hello. Hi Ollie.
Hey, yeah, quick one. Often in the past, I've had clients stay in the Sacred Valley before the MLP trek. Is that still okay? I know, because usually we would, send people there to acclimatise as opposed to Cusco first. But does that still work as an option for them? Because I know they'd missed the briefing though. That's the.
Yeah, it definitely would work. Actually, that's a good idea. I like the idea of going to the Sacred Valley for acclimatization, because it is a really nice kind of area to be in. It's like, I think it's slightly lower than Cusco, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of between. It's a bit lower than Machu Picchu, so it works quite nicely.
And so yeah, they would definitely be able to organize a guide to meet them first for a briefing, and then they would meet the rest of the group and then go on from there. So that wouldn't be a problem. That would be absolutely fine.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
No worries. Yep, I will definitely be sending the presentation through, Hannah. That's no problem at all. In fact, I'll be sending presentation, the recording of this webinar, and fact sheets and links and everything that you might need to know. The next one I'm doing is on Pacuari and Lapa Rios in a couple of weeks' time. I'll be sending out an invitation to that, so do make sure you sign up to that. But if that's all, I will see you again soon, I hope. Thanks very much for attending, and see you again online soon.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.